We can actually say that plants also domesticized us, because corn, by containing a lot of carbs, made itself very valuable, and it used us to cut away the rainforest so that we could plant corn in that place. So in that sense, the corn is actually winning from the rainforest through us. This book is called The Botany of Desire by one of my favorite authors, Michael Pollan. And what I like about his approach is that everything he writes about, he also tries out in real life. So this inspired me, and later in the video I will tell you what it brought to me. In this book he explains 4 different desires that we have as humans that plants can actually satisfy. So the first one is sweetness, the second one is beauty, the third one is intoxication, and the fourth one is control. The definition of sweetness changed throughout the years because it used to be super rare to be able to taste something sweet. You need to realize that the first apples, or generally basically all apples that you grow from seed, will turn out very sour. When people a few hundred years ago were tasting something sweet, what they meant with the word sweet was that it could satisfy all their needs, all their senses. And now the definition of the word sweet actually changed because we start to associate it with candy and unhealthy stuff. And what I didn't know about apples is that when you taste, for example, a Yona Gold or an L-Star, these are all grafted, so taken from the same original tree. So every type of apple that you see in the supermarket, whether you buy it in China or in the Netherlands or in America, if it's the same type of apple, if it has the same name, they originally all come from the same tree, but the branch has just been cut off and put on a different tree to grow further. The next chapter is about beauty. And what I love about how he talks about beauty is that he mentions Apollo and Dionysus, which are 2 Greek gods, and the Greeks associated the interplay between these two to create art and beauty. Because one of the gods is about chaos and orgies and the senses and irrationality, while Apollo is about rationality, structure, culture, order. And you can look at a flower and say that nature wants to be abundant, but it's just being kept in check by certain constraints. And it sounds very poetic, but the interplay between this is what creates beauty. You should also know that because there are flowers, we are here as warm-blooded creatures. Because 200 million years ago there were no fruits, there were no flowers, because flowers you need for fruits, and fruits would produce enough energy to be warm-blooded, but there were no flowers, so there was no beauty, and there were only cold-blooded animals. And only when there were flowers and fruits there was enough energy to have warm-blooded animals. So we are all having to thank the flowers to our existence. So the next chapter is about intoxication, more specifically the marijuana plant. The word hashish actually derived from assassin, because as the story goes, there used to be a group of assassins. They would invite more people to their group and they would give them a lot of hashish until they passed out. And when they woke up, they were in the garden of a palace. They had everything that they wanted. And when they walked around the garden, they came across these beheaded people lying on the ground, which were actually just actors with their head above the ground. So the new people in this group would believe that it was a dream. And when they smoked more and they reawakened, they would be back where they started before they started smoking the hashish. They would remember that these heads were telling them that the afterlife is beautiful, and they would become relentless killers because they weren't afraid of death anymore. They knew that there would be something beautiful in the afterlife. Now, why would plants create these intoxicating effects? Well, as the theory goes, if the plants would produce poison, the animals that would eat these poisonous plants would actually evolve through evolution to a point where the poison doesn't hurt them anymore. So from the plant's perspective, it's actually more useful to create a substance that's not poisonous, which only gives you memory loss or makes you trip, because in that way you're gonna forget where you found this plant and it will be protected. And about this memory loss, there's actually a cannabinoid receptor in your brain, which is actually the keyhole where the cannabinoids from the hashish go into, but the key or the neurotransmitter that's supposed to go in there is called anandamide, which got his name from the Sanskrit word from inner bliss. And what they say about anandamide, this neurotransmitter that is naturally available in your brain, its function is to make you forget. And this also changed my perspective, because I've always been thinking of forgetting as something bad. But forgetting is not a failure, it's a feature. It's supposed to be in your brain, because you're not supposed to remember everything. They even say that it's helping us to go through the same ritual day in and day out, and it doesn't become boring, because we are constantly forgetting that we did the exact same thing yesterday. Now the last chapter is about control, or the potato. And you might have heard of Monsanto, who creates genetically modified potatoes, which Michael Pollan grew in his garden as an experiment, and it worked out well, even though it doesn't sound very nice to eat genetically modified potatoes, but you're probably eating genetically modified stuff all the time. So when Michael Pollan bought these potatoes and he put them in the ground, it came with a long set of instructions which told him that he is not permitted to regrow them again and again, because they have a patent on the DNA. And I think this is an absurd idea, because it's like something that nature has created and we as humans have tweaked, and now we are just monetizing it. And the potato actually originates from the Incas in South America. There were so many different varieties because they lived in the mountains. So one patch would have a lot of sun and the other a little bit of sun, or high humidity, low humidity and temperature changes. So their bet was, let's just not put all our potatoes in the same basket and spread our chances, so there will always be a few that survive. And what we are doing now in agriculture is just creating monocultures, and the result of this, only growing the same type of potato, is that also our taste becomes a monoculture. Like when we go to the McDonald's, we expect the fries to be a certain taste, and there's no room for any diversity anymore. So my takeaways from this, like I said at the beginning, I wanted, just like Michael Pollan, to reenact something that I was reading in his book. So what I did during the first chapter was I was trying out as many different types of apples that I could find in the supermarket. And now I'm eating this type of apple every day because I enjoy it. And this also really resonates with the idea that we are creating monocultures, and this turns our taste into a monoculture. So we're eating the same apple every day, or at least I am, because it's my favorite, sweetest apple. I hope you can also go out and try new species of apples and pick the best one, and you're gonna be left with your favorite type of apple that you can enjoy every day. Thanks for watching.